The history of feminine products is a long and interesting one. While many people think of them as products designed solely for women, that's not always the case. In fact, many of the products currently used by women were actually first designed for men. This video will explore the history and development of feminine products that were originally made for men. 1. The color pink. The color pink is commonly associated with femininity, but this was not always the case. Historically, pink was originally directed at men. For example, in the 1920s in America, pink was designated as the color for boys, while blue became the color of choice for girls. The reason for this is because many European cultures followed a strict color coding system aimed at distinguishing genders. Red and yellow were reserved for those of higher power and prestige, but pink was seen as a more calming or lighthearted color. Today, pink is commonly used in fashion, beauty products, and decoration, and has come to represent diversity and inclusion of all genders. 2. High heels. High heels were originally created for men in the 16th century. They had first been worn by Persian soldiers in the 14th century and eventually made their way to Europe. In the 1700s, high heels became increasingly popular among the upper classes and nobility. This led to a separation of genders, where high heels were worn exclusively as part of a woman's wardrobe. High heels have been viewed as a symbol of femininity ever since. In more recent times, there has been a revival of men's high heels in high fashion. While this has been met with some controversy, it is further evidence that high heels were originally made for men. 3. Purses. It may come as a surprise to some, but purses were originally made for men. The first purses, usually called pockets, were worn by men in Europe during the 16th century. Like modern purses, pockets were used to carry coins and other small, personal items. It wasn't until the 17th century that purses started to become popular among women. Today, purses are worn by both men and women. Though the designs have changed drastically over the centuries, the basic shape and size of the purse remains the same. Some bags designed for men feature less ornamentation and simpler designs, while others are decorated in bolder colors and prints. No matter what style of purse someone prefers, it is important to remember that purses were originally made for men. 4. Long hair. Young men in many cultures have historically worn long hair as a sign of power, strength, and maleness. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs, for example, kept their hair long and wore ornately braided styles. Native Americans and other indigenous cultures have traditionally worn long locks as a sign of strength, wisdom, and devotion. Men in India, on the other hand, have bound their hair in tight knots and kept it long as a sign of piety. Long hair for men also became popular in the punk rock movement of the late 1970s and early 1980s, where it was seen as a rejection of the conservative values of the era. In some contexts, long hair can have a stylish, youthful, and rebellious look. 5. Makeup. Makeup was actually worn by men in ancient Rome, Greece, and Egypt. It was only in the mid-19th century that it started to become largely associated with women. In the decades that followed, men's makeup became less socially acceptable as the masculine ideal of a strong, unadorned man was more highly valued. Male makeup now often consists of subtle looks meant to enhance the features of the face, or products meant to hide minor imperfections, such as concealer, to create a more even complexion. 6. Skirts. It may come as a surprise to many, but in past societies men actually wore something very similar to skirts. In some Scottish clans, the traditional form of dress was a belted plaid, a woolen cloth that could either be tied around the waist like a skirt or draped over the shoulder as a cape. The plaid was popular among many Scottish men up until the 19th century. Skirts are also still worn by some men in parts of India and the Middle East. While skirts for men are no longer common in modern society, they still hold an important place in the history of fashion and are another example of how gender roles in fashion have not always been as strictly defined as they are today. Thanks for watching, and please share this video.